Handle your high with Tadayoshi. All right, welcome to the show. Hey, George. We have George Peterson on the show with me. I appreciate you taking the time, George, to talk with me on my show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. The honor's mine. Truly. You've done so well the last, just like us. It seems like just the last couple of years, I just started hearing about you. And next thing you know, you're winning the Arnold.
I know, man. It's been like a rocket ship, ever since I, came back into the sport in 2016 and, tried out the classic physique division, which was, very new. That was the first year classic physique came out in 2016. And, and it was like a rocket ship, straight to the top. I had no idea what the division was really looking for. All I knew was that there was a weight you had to make. So I said, you know what? Let me go for it, and boom, straight to the top almost.
You're 5'7", right? Is that right? Did I get that right?
I'm a little under 5'8".
A little under 5'8". Okay, so it's tough in that weight. I think. What your weight limit is? What as a pro?
Well, as a pro right now, my weight limit is 192.
That's tough, man. It is tough to be at that, because you and I are around the same height. I'm about 5'7", and I can remember competing in bodybuilding, and it was tough, man. It was tough for me to get my weight down under 200 and be, so I can imagine you're killing yourself to get that weight down.
Yeah, especially as you progress and you get better, you put on more muscle, so it makes it even harder to get down to make that weight. Like when I first started in classic, my weight cap was 177.
Right.
And then they raised it 5 pounds. And then so I had a little bit more room then. And then they raised it another 5 pounds. And now we're at 192. So I was like happy every time they raised it. I'm not gonna lie, I'll be happy if they raise it again.
They probably should.
Yeah, it'll be. I think it'll be a good thing. Because I know that they say the weight cap was put in place for everybody to make sure that the bodies, stay under control. Guys don't get, big guts and all that. Have nice shape. But I feel like that even without that weight governor, it's up to the athlete, to monitor himself to make sure he doesn't allow himself to get out of control.
I agree, and I think that the judging standards are such that it would be really difficult for a guy, especially in the classic division, to have some of these like having a distended stomach or have some of these other attributes that really would work against them on stage. They just wouldn't be able to do very well if they didn't have those good qualities, those aesthetic qualities that they're really trying to enforce with the weight. Although I will say that it's probably a good idea as amateurs to try to make sure you keep people fitting in the weight class. Being a judge, when I judge shows, people always ask me, how do you judge the pros? Well, it's easier judging pros than it is judging amateurs oftentimes because in the amateurs, and I hate to say it, I hate for it to sound like this, but oftentimes it's like you got to pick the best of the worst, because they're
yeah.
Whereas the pros everybody's pretty good, everyone's usually really good, and so it's just now you're really looking at who really is the best instead of trying to figure out what's the best that I got up here.
Right. That's very true.
But I just know how hard it was for me to get down to in that range that you are competing at, and still feel like I look full. Do you feel like do you feel like this is like an ideal? I know we just said you could probably move it up a couple pounds, but you seem to fit into this class really beautifully, and especially with your last showing at the Arnold, it seems like you're kind of right in your sweet spot. Do you feel that way or?
Absolutely. I definitely felt, especially like at the Arnold, because when I first started in bodybuilding, like back in 2007, and then I got my first overall win as a light heavyweight bodybuilder in 2012. I was just that. I was a light heavyweight bodybuilder, so I was 197, 196. So for the Arnold, I always felt like that was my sweet spot, the light heavyweight division there, And so for the Arnolds on stage, I weighed 197, which is the weight of a light heavyweight bodybuilder.
Right.
And as you can see, that was my best showing to date.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like I'm right where I need to be in that sweet spot. And also the important thing for me to do when I'm not competing the off season is not to let my weight get too out of control. Then it makes it even harder to get down.
I think that's one of the things that probably that weight limit sort of enforces. And now you tell me from your perspective, because I didn't compete in Classic. Obviously, it came out, but I wasn't. I was too heavy to ever even try to compete in that when I was competing. But it seems like going from bodybuilding to Classic, that's usually people. Well, I would say usually somebody who's in your height and weight category, it would be hard to stay there. But when you're in bodybuilding, it's like in the off season, you're always looking to gain, right? I mean, that was me every year. Like, okay, here's my competitions, here's my gaining season, my off season, and then it was always push the weight up. Well, you can't really do that as freely in the class. At least you can't with where you're at, because if you go too heavy, then you risk not fitting into your class. And so how do you manage that? And was it a good thing? Is it easier for you to manage your off season as a Classic competitor than it was as a bodybuilder?
Yes, absolutely. Because as a bodybuilder, like I found myself, trying to force feed myself to try to get up to 250 pounds in the off season. That was the thing. Like, back then when I was competing as a bodybuilder in the off season, guys, we drilled in your head in the off season. The goal is to get up to 250 pounds. So like you're like, and believe it or not, I mean, like I'm not really like a easy gainer in that regard where I can just blow up. I have to really eat to get up to 250. I could probably get to I can get to 220, 225 fairly easy. Beyond that becomes a challenge, and then I really have to eat to get beyond that. So in that time, I was eating, force feeding, just feeling like crap, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I hated that feeling. I hated it. It turned me off and made me not even want to do it no more. So it's definitely easier now because I keep the meal still fairly clean. It's the 6 meals a day. I allow myself, a cheat meal, here and there. And I feel better. Just physically not having to go up to, that high, keeping myself maybe at most 220,
So that was about what was the heaviest you got when you were bodybuilding in the off season?
Bodybuilder, I got up to like 235 in the off season,
How does that feel? And today you get about what, 225, 220? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like 225. Yeah. Much better.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because I know today, even though I'm retired and I still bodybuild, but I'm not ever gonna compete again. But I do like staying smaller. It's kind of funny now. It's like how we evolve in this. I do like staying smaller because it is easier on my body.
Right.
Sleeping is easier on eating, easier on sleeping. So I get what you're saying about it. But so for you, like, was it that transition sounds like it was like the perfect transition?
Yeah, it was absolutely a perfect transition. I felt,
I know I really, this is one of the things I like about the Classic division, that it adds a spotlight for guys like you. And if I was coming up, I absolutely would probably want to feed into the Classic division, just because it's like it's hard to get on stage with the likes of these guys like Flex Lewis and all these guys who are in the 212s, or now he's moving up, but who are these massive dudes. It's like not everybody's built for that kind of frame. So, and I'm glad to hear, because I had the exact same kind of experience in my bodybuilding career as you did. I did not gain weight easily. People thought I did, because I think I got up to like 272 is my heaviest. And
wow.
But it was like you said, it's a constant. My job was really to eat all day. Yeah. It's like eat, train, sleep, eat, train, sleep. And I was lucky that I was able to do that. But this division seems like it fits a little bit better for some guys. Not all guys, of course, but for a lot of guys, it seems like it fits better. And you still seem to retain, in my opinion, this is my opinion. In my opinion, your physique still retains a very hardcore bodybuilding sort of feel to it. It doesn't have quite like at the Arnold. I'll have to admit, and I promised I have a partner in crime every once in a while who I have on my show, Nigel Lomax, and I don't know. Okay. I think you know Nigel.
I think so. Yeah.
He was sitting there with me, helping me take pictures and stuff at the Arnold, and he's like, he pegged you to win, and I had pegged Steve to win. When we were looking, I was like, okay. I said, man, it's really close. I said, but I really like the shape. I really like Steve's shape. Looking back, I mean, when you compare the conditioning, your conditioning was far superior, and so you justifiably won based on your structure and your superior and your presentation. So I totally have no qualms against the judging, of course, but he wanted me to mention that because he said you got to mention that you didn't have him win at the Arnold. I said, okay, I'll tell him. I did have him win, but it was like if I had to, I said it was a toss-up. I said, I would have, like in many instances, I wouldn't argue either way. But the reason why was because Steve's physique is really aesthetically pleasing. It's very, very sort of classical. He lacks depth. You have a lot more depth to your physique, and especially from behind. It's hard to beat you from behind. So it's very, but if he were to gain some of that, he could easily improve his physique quite a bit. But what was your feelings when you were there? Like, how did you? Because it looked to me from last year to this year, the last 3 years you've done really well there, and it's like, and then this year, of course, you win. It looked to me, now you correct me if I'm wrong, it looked to me like you kind of felt like you got it. I just felt that when I looked at, because I'm like, man, he's confident, he looks great, he's fucking, like you had a smile on your face the whole time, like this, you really look like you were having fun. So what was how did that feel? What was that like?
I mean, for me, when I step on that stage, I go there with the attitude where, like, when I go, step in the middle of the stage, I start hitting my poses. I'm giving off a vibe to everyone there, not posing in a way where I'm asking, oh, am I the winner? Do I fit here? Am I classic? I'm posing in a way where I'm saying, I am classic. I am the winner. This is why I'm going to show you right now. So and when I have that attitude, it gives me that confidence to be able to, hit my shots, keep the smile, have fun up there, because I know I did the work. I know I look good. When you're on point, it gives you that fire, to just go there and just own it, own it. And I knew that me and my coach, Justin Miller, I know that we nailed it this time, because the focus for this prep was to, as opposed to my Olympia showings where I still got top 3, which is very good. We had the conditioning at those shows, but I was lacking in the fullness to really make my body pop. And we nailed that this time around. We had that fullness because I didn't go on stage at exactly 192. I got on stage 197, which, like I said, is my sweet spot. And it showed. People when I did another interview, people said, what did you do to make such a dramatic difference? You made such a dramatic difference from the 18 Olympia to the 19 Arnold. Well, that difference was the fullness. It makes a huge difference when you have fullness to go with the conditioning, because when you just have conditioning and you're flat, your muscles not popping, it's hard. Nothing's going to really happen. Yeah.
And the muscles tend to start looking different. They start to look like angular. They don't look as round. They don't, nothing, right. So you're absolutely right. So when so that's like it's about 5 pounds heavier, right? For the Arnold?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So what did you just carb up more? Did you do less carb? Tell me what you did to what was your guys' plan?
Well, the plan was we just, because we wanted to play it safe, because we know that the top guys kept coming there sharp, sharp as a tack. So we wanted to make sure we were sharp for the Olympia. So we were a little too cautious. So I didn't really carb up that much, even after the weigh-in, and kind of kept the meals like really, really clean. But this time around, we still kept it cautious, but not overly cautious. So I still, after the weigh-in, I had a little dirty meal, but most of it was bringing me back with fluids, like, rehydrating me, and also with using sodium, salt. So that was, most of the key. And my coach Justin, when he would look at me pretty much like every hour, we would weigh myself, every hour to 2 hours, to see how, I was progressing. And when we saw I got to 197, we said, you know what? Let's keep it here. Let's hold it there.
So you're like you're kind of like it sounds like you're a little bit like what I used to do when I competed with, the pendulum swings to the right a little bit. You're overweight, and then you kind of slowly bring it back down to where you meet the weight, so to speak.
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like it on stage because you have a lot of muscle, and you're hitting the weight right on the dime. So it's like, and I know I just know how hard it is at your height, because I'm not around that height, and just to come anywhere, I think people mistake. It's kind of funny over the years. I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and I've given a lot of advice to people, and competitors at shows always come up to me. They talk about their weights. They talk about how much they weigh on stage. I say, I think I was just holding some water. You know, it's and then I look at their pictures. I'm like, no, you were holding fat. Because people don't realize how hard it is to bring 200 pounds on a 5'7", 5'8" frame on stage, lean, ripped, that's a really difficult task with nothing superfluous, no extra added, visceral weight, no, everything's just right there. So now you did that. So go ahead.
And this is another thing. Like, I was like in the prep for this show, I was conditioned and ready at 205. Like weeks out. When me and my coach Justin would talk about the possibilities of say spilling, we were saying, okay, so right now I'm 205, conditioned, show ready, and we still have weeks to go. If we get down to 192, what are really going to be the chances of spilling over? If we bring myself back up to like say 197. I mean, if we do it the right way, then the chances of me spilling over would probably be highly unlikely. So that's another reason why why we didn't be overly cautious the way we was the last time around.
Well, it worked out perfect. So it worked out nicely. Now, are you doing any other shows this year besides the Olympia? I'm assuming you're doing the Olympia.
Well, yeah, definitely going to be doing the Olympia, but no, I'm not doing any other shows. Just because at first the original plan was to only do the 2019 Olympia, only. But then we just kind of made a judgment call. Say, you know what? Should we do the Arnold?
I think it was a good idea. I think it was a good idea.
Yeah, it definitely turned out to be a great idea.
So, are you? Is it just to rest the body? Because I don't know how hard. Is dieting hard on your body? Because for some athletes it's a little easier. Some athletes it's harder. I was only able to withstand a couple of maybe usually 2 or 3 shows were max, and they had to be clumped together in a season for me to really feel great. But what is it for you?
Dieting is not hard for my body at all. I mean, my body actually, loves the dieting because, like the more I diet, the more muscular my body turns out to appear. So my body just, eats it up. I don't get burnt out from dieting or whatnot. Mentally, I'm still, mentally strong. But taking the time off is just I want to make sure I come, because the goal now is to bring a 2019 Olympia version of myself that would destroy the Arnold version of myself.
Nice. Okay.
So we want to take this time to make those improvements what we need to make, so that we can go for that title and get it.
What are you doing anything specific in the gym? You look pretty complete for the most part in your physique, especially like I said, especially from the rear. But you look pretty complete. What is there something in your mind that you're like, okay, I want to work on that? Because everyone's got their thing, right? Everybody's.
Yeah.
What is it for you when you look at your physique?
For me, I want to get my arms a little bigger still. I would still like to bring my legs up a little bit more. Those 2 areas are really the only 2 that I really see myself wanting to just bring up a little bit more. I've made great improvements to my chest since 2016. And I've made improvements, everywhere, since 2016. But right now, I'm still really just pinpointing on the arms and legs a little bit.
What's so now in terms of competition, and I never asked this question, but I have to ask because right now the classic category is so interesting with all the guys that are in it. Do you see it seems like, now I could be wrong, but it seems like you guys, most of you guys, especially the top, let's say the top 5 to 10 guys, you guys know each other, and everybody's pretty cool to each other, it seems like, and there's a lot of joking around. And so who do you see as what's your main focus when you coming into this, especially with Breon and everybody? Tell me what your thoughts are on some of these guys. Do you just get all these guys out of your head before you train for the Olympia, or do you just or do you kind of make a game of it? I don't know what your style is.
My style, personally, is I get all of them out of my head. I don't think about any of them, and and all the predictions from the from everybody. I don't even let those affect me, because I've been in situations plenty of time where people predicted me not to be in the top 5, and then I ended up being top 3. People predicted me to not win, and I ended up winning. So I just don't even pay attention to that stuff, and I just do what I have to do, because I personally feel like that a 100% George Peterson would be tough for anybody to deal with.
I like, yeah, absolutely. I like that. I think that most of the great champions out there in any sport, I was just watching this cool little interview. It was like an interview kind of thing on, I think it was Kobe, and he was saying that he has that alternate personality that they turns on, the Black Mamba. Yeah. I mean, It's just a way for him to lock everything out and to focus. And he says, and I'm like, fuck, I love that. I'm like, fuck, that is awesome. I'm like, yeah, we all should have our alternate ego. And
they should.
It's just a way to help keep us focused. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I talk about when I talk to athletes about winning is, especially in my clients, I say, look, your body can't go anywhere. Your mind hasn't gone first. So you have to win in your mind first. You got to win there first. And just like what you were saying, like when you get on stage and you're like, I feel like I'm the classic. Like, that's what it's about. It's about feelings. But like, you got to feel it first. Once you felt it up here, then your body can go and follow. It sounds like you kind of take this kind of philosophy. I love talking about mindset. So, but it sounds like you take this kind of philosophy.
I mean, absolutely. That's exactly the philosophy. Like you said, everything starts with the mind. So I channel, my thoughts, and I get my mind right. And once my mind is right, the body follows. And I just feel like, nothing can stop me when I get in that mode. So that's just how I prep for a show. And like I said, I don't let Instagram pictures and affect me, because everybody looks good on Instagram, but once we all stand up next to each other on stage, that's what you really see. So it made the best man win. That's all I say.
Absolutely. Hey, I do have to say that, like, as I've watched you the last couple of years, just like Branch Warren, for me, it was just like Branch Warren. It was just like a couple other bodybuilders like Jay Cutler and Branch Warren, who I didn't really appreciate as much when I first was introduced to them. But you came a little quicker, because you've been a pro since, not for 4 years.
3, yeah, 2000. Well, yeah, I turned pro late 2016 at Nationals. I won an overall at Nationals there. So since 2016, I've been pro.
So yeah, I've come to appreciate your physique more and more. The more I see it, the more I see it on stage, the more I appreciate it. No, and it's true, because some of the, and I think probably it's because your comfort level, your presentation, all these things that come into play, and also you're getting better. Of course, you're getting better. But what do you have something that prepares you? Like, we talk about mindset. I meditate. I really believe in mindfulness. It helps me in my life. But do you have things like that, or how do you approach getting yourself ready?
What I usually do is, sometimes, most of the time, I use myself as like that motivation. Like, I have a visualization of how I see myself going on stage, and I keep that visual in my head. And when I constantly think about that, I mean, that keeps me going, gets me prepared for every training session, every meal that I know I have to take in, everything I have to do. But sometimes what I also do is I like to go to things that have nothing to do with bodybuilding at all, to get me, motivated and channeled. Like, for this prep for the Arnold, I was watching a lot of old school Mike Tyson videos.
Man, I was too. A month ago. I don't know what was that. Maybe some on YouTube or something. I don't know. I was like watching all these old training things. I was like, I just got into it too. So go ahead. So it's kind of ironic.
Yeah, because I said to my coach Justin that I wanted to give this prep a theme name, and the theme that I gave it was Tyson.
Oh, nice.
And the reason why I called it Tyson is because I said, you know what? Back in the day, those Tyson fights, they would be over before they even started.
Oh,
guys would be, you know what I mean? They people
I remember
would be so scared of Tyson.
I was 16 years old when he won the world championship. I think he was the youngest world champion ever. I remember I lived in Vegas at the time. That's where I grew up, and I remember I was working at McDonald's, man, and that fight was on that night. It was there in Vegas, and I remember when he won, and I was like, and then after that, it just seemed like like the people were just like afraid to go in the ring. You could tell when they came out, like they were already psyched out, like it was already done. Like it was just a matter of time. He was just gonna knock this dude out. Like,
right.
So that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. So I was, using that kind of. I was using like videos of him. Of course, I always go to Bruce Lee quotes and footage because. Yeah, I really started.
I thought I read somewhere that you were like a Bruce Lee fan or something. That he inspired you.
Yeah, because that's actually. I mean, it was because of him is how I actually ended up falling into the bodybuilding world. Because I studied martial arts for years. I earned a black belt in Shotokan karate.
Nice.
Bruce Lee. Yeah. Nice. And Bruce Lee was a huge inspiration to me. But when I was reading up on Bruce Lee, I read that he started lifting weights to get stronger with his techniques. So I started lifting weights too to do the same thing. And then I just ended up falling into bodybuilding through that,
You found your other calling, right?
Exactly. So that's what I do. I do that. Sometimes Muhammad Ali stuff. I look at, I like to look at things that have nothing to do with bodybuilding itself, but just guys who I admire and as far as their work ethic and what they've been able to do and creating a legacy for themselves.
Is that the focal point for you? Is to really to focus on the brand that is, which is what my next question was going to be. How'd you come up with who came up with the name the Bull? You got George the Bull Peterson. I'm like, it sounds like I keep thinking like Jimmy the Bull Gravano or something, like some kind of mafia guy. But where did that come from? How did you come up with it, or who came up with it for you?
All right. Well, my nickname the Bull came from when I used to play street basketball.
Okay.
Because back in the day when I used to play basketball, I was like a Dennis Rodman type of player. Like I was like really aggressive. I would grab the rebounds off of guys who were so much taller than me. I was just a horse out there. But I would be so aggressive, kind of bully them out of my way to get the rebound. They started calling me, "Yo, you're a bull," the bull. And like when you're like in the hood, so to speak, you kind of like replace at the proper word with a slang type of word. So instead of the bull, it was double. So, exactly.
Okay, cool.
So that's how I got my name, the Bull, and I just always carried it with me, and now it's carried with me to bodybuilding. So and and it seems to fit now in bodybuilding too. So I just kept it.
You should make some shirts, or something. I'm sure people would love it.
That's coming.
Okay,
that's
good.
coming. I just want to make sure I play
some hats.
The Bull shirts.
Some hats, man. Some fucking kick-ass hats. That'd be awesome.
Hell yeah. That's all coming. It's in the works. I got a logo being made as we speak.
That's awesome. All right. Well, good luck. That's cool. Yeah. I always find it interesting because everybody has these nicknames, and sometimes they're given to us in the industry. Like Lonnie Teeper's been famous for giving people names. I just thought maybe I didn't know. I knew there was probably a story.
Yeah.
Now, whereabouts? Would you say what part? You grew up in New York, right?
Yeah, New York. I grew up in Queens, Jamaica, Queens.
Oh, cool. Okay, I've actually heard it's that place has changed quite a bit in the last 25 years, right?
A lot.
Big time.
Like back in the day when I was in junior high school, high school, it was it was like it's still a good neighborhood, but things would happen, and now it's more diverse. So it's kind of like almost, you can almost call it like it almost comes off like a suburbs kind of area now.
The last time I was there, it felt that way. It kind of felt that way the last time I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't like what I'd heard about years ago. But then I don't really know all the boroughs very well. In terms of I travel around. I'm not really. I just kind of like Manhattan, just the places I got to go. But
right.
Now you live. Do you still live there now, or do you live somewhere nearby?
I still live in Queens.
Oh,
live out here.
Do you like it out there? Are you because everyone seems to be everybody
in Queens.
Everybody seems to want to move somewhere, like like Florida, or you know what I mean. It's like everyone's like, oh, it's going to be especially now that so you're with Redcon One. They've sponsored you, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I know because
I won't hear no one.
As you know, I know Aaron really well, and we've worked together for a long time, and I always support everything he does. I love his stuff. I had no idea that you were until you literally were. This is like goofy of me, but I literally didn't know that you were affiliated with Redcon One. That he had taken you on as an athlete before the Arnold. I didn't know that. How long has Aaron sponsored you at Redcon One?
They've been sponsoring me ever since I believe it's December.
Okay.
Yeah. So they reached out to me. The athlete manager Rudy, he contacted me. He told me that Aaron single-handedly chose me and wanted to bring me on board. So when I and then we talked back and forth, and after talking with them and seeing what Redcon was all about, I was game on. I was like, yeah, let's do it, because I felt like it was a perfect fit. I love the Redcon One brand. I love what they stand for. I love how it's a company that's constantly expanding, coming out with new products, and I love all their products. It's just an amazing company.
Yeah, well, Aaron really knows what he's doing, and I'll tell you, man, like he has a knack for picking winners when it comes to business or when it comes to people. So it actually says a lot for him to handpick you, so to speak.
Aaron's great.
He is. He's pretty awesome. I love him to death. He knows that. But you now what? So when moving forward into this post, I should say, after the Olympia this year, are you going to do anything after that? Sometimes people want to hit a show. I'm just curious if you're going to do a show after the Olympia. There's several big ones.
After the Olympia, I haven't really thought that far. But after the Olympia, who knows? Maybe I'll do. Maybe I'll do a local home New York Pro. Maybe, I don't know. We could do that. I don't know. I haven't really even thought that far. But
that's good though.
We'll see what happens after the Olympia.
That's good though, because maybe by that time you'll be the winner. You'll have to, and then there'll be other plans you have to make. So I don't know.
That's the goal. That's the goal. And I encourage that for any competitor out there. So, always go into a show with, look, we can't control. It's a subjective sport, so we can't control outcomes. All you can do is control, what you can control and bring your best package. But in doing so, you don't want to put too much stress and focus on, I have to win, because, that could be just a lot of unnecessary stress. Just do what you got to do and bring your best that you possibly can. But at the same time, you do want to prep for a show with the intention and the drive to win the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When you started, when you said you first got involved in bodybuilding sort of after martial arts, right?
Right.
And so when did you start martial arts? You said when you were a kid?
I was started martial arts when I was about 7 years old, 6 or 7.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then and it led you up into bodybuilding, so to speak, because and how old were you by that time?
By that time, I didn't start lifting weights until I was about maybe 25, 26.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it kind of feels like a late start almost for some people.
Very late start. A very late start, because when you talk to most guys who are into bodybuilding, they'll tell you that they was lifting weights since they were like 13,
right,
12 or something like that. I didn't want to, like, back then I didn't want to get big because I felt like too much muscle would slow me up with my punches and everything. Yeah. So I didn't want to get big, but I just fell in love with it after actually getting a taste of the weights, and my body started to respond to the weights so quickly. So I just fell in love with it, and then I just and I chose bodybuilding because after I started doing the bodybuilding, I couldn't train in martial arts the way I was at that level. So I, because you got it's one or the other,
Yeah. So it affected your. So you competed in martial arts as well, right?
Well, I didn't do any tournaments or anything like that. I just trained, and I also trained a little bit in jiu-jitsu, a little bit of judo, but I didn't do any like tournaments or anything like that,
Okay. Well, I when I grew up, my brother and I we studied martial arts as well, and we wanted to do tournaments, although I got involved in bodybuilding, and then he kept doing his thing, and I fell in love with bodybuilding like you did. But it's a tough thing. It's like, but it does take a very particular kind of person, and I noticed that when I got bigger, there was no way I could move around like I could before. You have to keep doing that, and you have to kind of keep that sort of svelte physique. You can't. It's difficult. I don't know. Most people don't realize that Bruce Lee was like a little dude. He was not a big dude.
Not at all.
He was like 135, 30 pounds, something like that. And lean, but very, very, very agile, very quick. And people don't realize how quick he really was. I've seen my brother and I used to do all that. We used to love watching stuff about him, and he's, man, the guy was like super, super quick. It was not even funny how fast that dude was.
Tell me about it. It's like otherworldly. He was definitely beyond his time.
Yeah, we used to watch. I don't know if you dig this kind of stuff. We liked like all the guys like Bill Superfoot Wallace, and I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't know what Bill Superfoot is. I mean, is that like around the time of like Jim Kelly and stuff like that?
I'm not sure. It was in the 70s. It was in like the early to mid 70s, and I was born in 70, so when I was growing up, these are some of the characters that were sort of big in the martial arts field because they were doing movies. Because Bruce Lee kind of like made that popular. So they were doing movies along with like Chuck Norris was doing some movies early on before he became really famous. And then, but Bill Wallace was like, I think he was like the world champion. But what made him special was that they call him Superfoot because he could do a roundhouse kick and they clocked it at over like 80 miles an hour. Like it was just unreal. And I kept thinking, man, get hit by that. That's gonna hurt.
Oh my god! Yeah.
But in order to do that, you do have to have a particular kind of physique, and I think every sport lends itself to certain kinds of physiques and attributes. And your physique definitely fits classic really well. Like I said before, I wish it would have been nice for me to be able to go and compete in classic as well, just to see how I could have done, just to see, because I think it would have fit very well. I don't think I would have felt the inclination to want to try to push my weight up so much all the time. Although that's a lot of fun. I will have to admit that's a lot of fun.
Sometimes.
But when you look forward, because you're not, how old are you now?
Right now I'm 34.
Okay, so you're just hitting your peaks here. You're not even.
Yeah, pretty much.
How do you feel in terms of like in terms of longevity? I heard a lot of guys talk about wanting to develop their brand and these kinds of things in the sport, and that's all very smart. What's your main focus? Like, when you think of bodybuilding, what's your main focus?
I mean, right now, like when I'm thinking about that, I mean, my main focus is to. I'm not gonna lie. My main focus is to become the class physique Mr. Olympia. That's my main focus. I mean, but I'm not. I don't have myself in a one-dimensional thing, and I do understand that there is a life after bodybuilding. So right now I'm taking the steps to get that underway. Like I said, I have my logo being made, so I'm gonna have shirts that are coming out. I have a training program that I developed that I'm making available to people. So if they want to get a purchase like a training program, how I personally train, like I personally written out the training program how I actually train. So I'll make that available to people. I mean, eventually I could get into. I haven't gotten into it heavily yet because. When I'm right now, I'm talking about like actually prepping people for shows.
And everything cool. Like that. Coaching people.
Yeah, coach people. Like I haven't gotten into that heavily as of yet because when I do that, I want to make sure that I'm able to give everybody I'm helping like 100% of my time. And
it's hard when you're competing.
Right? It's hard, exactly. So I've kind of like kept that just a little bit on the down low until actually I feel like I can manage that. And and I'm just also just seeing what other things I could actually do to give back to the sport. So once I'm actually finished, there'll be something else that I can actually do because like my when it comes to stuff like that, like my number one inspiration is like a guy like Jay Cutler. Like when you talk about somebody who really turn this, what he did on stage into like a business and, and is really, really giving back to the sport. It's Jay Cutler, and also Lee Haney, like all these guys.
Yeah. Guys, Jay and Phil and Lee and a lot of these guys who had really great, the key was they had great mentors. And,
yes.
And I'll tell you, man, like you are in such a wonderful position. And I'm just going to share this with you because it would suck if you didn't take advantage of it. That Aaron Singerman, I would, if it was me and I were you, I would probably at least try to find 15 minutes a week where I can pick his brain, where I would pick his brain about how some things you can do to develop your brand and continue to become more successful. Just because I think people don't, there's a lot of, I think I've known Aaron for forever and ever and ever. And I used to coach him when he was an athlete and he and I became good friends. We worked Arch Muscle together and I've seen the guy go from zero to hero. Like in a span of a decade, and there was a time where nobody really he was not nearly as well liked as he is today, but he's well liked today because of his success. I think a lot of it, and he's really figured out how to do all these things in social media and in this electronic format that we live in, this social media age that we live in. He's a master. So that's where I'd be picking his brain about how to market yourself and these kinds of things, just so that because you're in a great sort of position to do that. Because he really does know. He really does know.
Absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. I can tell, and I appreciate you, letting me know that. I mean, I sure will. I'm definitely gonna, do that because I mean, like I said, like I know that I can't, compete forever. So I want to, be able to have something, to like show forward and give back, to the sport and everything.
Yeah, I think that's probably a really wonderful attitude. I think a lot of people forget, especially when you're an athlete and you're doing so well, you forget like, okay, this doesn't last forever. Like nothing lasts forever, right? Like we all have to evolve in cycles. Sometimes we're winning, sometimes we're not winning. Sometimes we have a certain season for it. Sometimes we have a certain season for something else in our life, that kind of thing. But so you're absolutely right, and it's smart of you to be able to do that, to be able to put some. And I would probably like, I don't know. For me, I like organization, so like I have my priorities set so that I can kind of always see things in my vision on a daily basis.
Right.
Do you have? I'm just curious. Do you have a daily ritual that I read this? I read an article that said that all successful people that they polled, people in music, people in different industries, but especially athletes, they said they all have morning rituals. Do you have a morning ritual? and they're unique. They're unique to each person, but many of them, consist of things like meditation or whatever that is for them. But do you have some kind of morning ritual? And do you get up early? Because you may not even get up early. I don't know.
I actually, that's the thing. I actually don't get up early. I'll tell you why. Because I still, work a regular job at a cable company. Oh, okay. And my hours are from 5:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh wow. Okay, you got that night shift thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm more of a night person anyway, so I like working that shift. Okay. But I don't get home till 3 a.m., 3:30, and I'm usually sleep by 4 a.m. So I typically usually sometimes don't wake up until maybe about 9:30, 10 a.m. or so. But I mean, I don't know, I don't consider that early, but that's not early. But it's not. But I don't consider that too late either, because I'm like a late night person too. Like I'll work late. I work, I write, I do a lot of my other stuff that I do when I don't have to interact with people. I'm like you. My brain wakes up at night, and so here's a bit of a trivia for you. There was a Japanese scholar, professor from Oxford, who did a study, and they said that people who are night owls, they said they found trends that they had generally higher IQs. So so who knows, man? Yay! And I've always been a night owl. Sounds like you're a night owl. Sounds like we could be. And I have had my IQ tested, so I know I'm on the genius level. But they did say that people who are night owls tend to have this higher IQ. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know how, but hey, I'll take that. For sure. But to answer the question, I mean, when I actually do wake up every morning. I didn't even actually think about it until you just asked me. But I guess it is a morning ritual. But I do actually, religiously, wake up. I give myself, first thing I do is I give myself a cup of coffee, and I usually just kind of for like a good 3-4 minutes or so, I'm just standing there with my cup of coffee. I'm just standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, who do I want George Peterson to be? What do I want George Peterson to be? Remembered for? I actually do think that every morning. And I see if if my answers change, or if it's the same answer. But I literally, stand there for just kind of like also going into a daze a little bit, just for a few minutes, and just thinking to myself, who do I want George Peterson to be? What kind of person do I want to be? How do I want him to be remembered? So I kind of just learn about myself. What do I want to give to the world? What do I want to offer?
What comes out? I by the way, I think that is a beautiful question. I think it's an awesome way to start the day. I think it's one of the most self-aware things that I've heard in a long time. It's really, it's not. I don't think it's dumb. I think it's actually pretty awesome. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
Because I have my own morning ritual, but I'm going to absolutely. I love I'm a very cerebral person, and I'm always thinking about these kinds of things, like, because I believe, and you probably believe the same thing because you're asking this question of yourself, that we can't become something that we haven't thought through. We have to plan. We have to have a very specific, a very crystal clear idea about what vision we want to create with it, especially in this sport. You have to have a very crystal clear vision of what you want to create on stage, right? I mean, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right down to the toenail. Like, you want to create it very precisely. And the same thing goes true for our lives. When you ask yourself that question, like, what are some of the kinds of answers that come up for you?
Pretty much for the most part, I'll always say that I want George Peterson to be remembered for a guy who worked for everything that he received, and with determination and perseverance, anything can happen. Anything is possible. A guy who, when he really believed in something, refused to take no for an answer, and just went after what he wanted without hesitation. Like that. And hopefully, if that is what I'll be remembered for, that can inspire others who have something they really want, so a goal, whatever it is, something that they really want to strive for, that they won't take no for an answer, because you're always going to have people around you that says, oh no, you can't do this, because you go for it. I mean, if I since I started in Classic, I've heard people say, oh, he's not Classic, he shouldn't do this, he should be 212.
You just won the Arnold.
Exactly. Now if I would have listened, exactly, Tad, now if I would have listened, I wouldn't be the Arnold Classic champion right now. So that's basically how what I always say, end up answering back to myself when I think about that.
I hope a lot of competitors listen to that, people in general listen to that, because a lot of people look for motivation. Lots of people doing wonderful things on social media with like self-help and helping people to really feel their own power. But that's a beautiful way to put it, because it speaks to having faith in oneself. And everybody says things like, "Oh yeah, I believe in myself." Because by the way, I've said this a lot, but I'll say it to you. I always ask two questions of my athletes. One, I say, "Are you positive? Are you a positive person?" And two, "Do you believe in yourself?" That's my second question. And there's no right and wrong answer. Like, I'm not expecting them to give me a particular answer. I'm only expecting them to become self-aware of the answers that they give. I want them to know that if their attempt in this life is to be as positive as possible, because I'm of the belief that only positive works. Negative doesn't work. So if you feel you're negative, then that's something we need to work on. Right. And then and most people say, yes, I'm positive, and most people say, yes, I'm I believe in myself. But the real answer to the second question really isn't yes. The real answer is that they intend to have faith in themselves. They intend to believe, but only as far as the conditions of their life will prove it to them.
Right.
And just like what you said, like if you judged yourself by the last 2 years, not this year, but the last year's Arnold, then you'd be like, okay, well, maybe I can't win, but because you got really close, but but I mean, like somebody else would say, if I can't win, then I shouldn't be there,
right,
so, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of, I don't think so. Like, maybe you should maybe we're not always in the right place where we need to, like, our physique or our body or our evolution of who we are isn't exactly, and losses tell us how to get there.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do you view these, like, I hate to say them losses, because I just don't think you could lose unless you quit. But,
right. Yes.
But how do you?
I feel the same way.
So what's your philosophy on this, and how do you view it, and how do you use it?
I pretty much use it like so. Those like those places like where I got third at at the two Olympias, like for one thing, I feel like those two were a blessing. I feel like those were a huge accomplishment.
I like that you said that. I like that you said that. Yes.
Like I said, I by no means do I see that as a loss. However, when you're thinking about it in terms of, okay, what do I have to do to get to the number one spot, I see those as those placings as tools to, like you said, direct me to the path that it's going to take me to get to that number one spot. Look at things that you can adjust and fix. we only get better if we don't succeed sometimes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. I say it like this. I say if you're not losing, then you're probably not winning. You got, and I don't mean lose. I'm just using that as like a term, but you have to get challenged, right? Like we go to the gym not because we can, like when I go work out, and when you work out, you don't do the weight you can do. You don't do the stuff you can do. You do the stuff you can't do so that you can do it later.
Exactly.
So you got to fail, right?
You got to fail. Exactly.
I think we just sometimes term things differently. I think also a lot of people, when we grow up in this culture, and I think especially the younger generation, as each generation that seems to come up seems to, and I don't mean to make any blanket dispersions because it's not, but it seems like there's a trend in some cases, in many cases, that people just don't want to wait. They really want to see the immediate conditions, like, oh my gosh, if I can't do it like this, then I'll never be able to do it. Like, and there's that really doesn't happen that way. Well, because you sprung up fast, I have to admit. Like, like you really gained traction quickly, but you found the right division. You weren't really new to the sport necessarily, so it's a little bit of a misnomer for you. But for many people, they want a meteoric rise, like you or like Bill Heath or like somebody else that they admire, and then if they don't get that, then it's almost like, well, maybe I can't do it. Maybe it's not for me. Or if they don't get their pro card in their first couple attempts at the nationals, and they go, oh, I guess I wasn't good enough. Well, it's obvious you weren't good enough, but like but are you going to get better? You're like, what's moving you to be better, so to speak?
Exactly. Look, people they have to be patient. Anything that's worth anything, isn't gonna come easy. So it really takes true patience, to when the time is right, it will happen. Things happen for a reason. Look, when I back in 2012, like I said, I had an overall win back in 2012, but then the next year in 2013, when I went on to North Americans and Nationals, I got dead last, and I was as a heavyweight bodybuilder. It wasn't my time. It wasn't my time. I took 3 years away from the sport. Still continued to train and everything. 3 years later, I joined the Classic Physique, and then now I'm a pro, and then now I'm a top Olympia, an Arnold Classic champion.
Isn't that surreal?
It's very surreal when I think about it, But that goes to show you that now this was my time. That wasn't my time. It'd be easy for me to say, oh, if I would have did this different back then, I would have been a pro back then. But look, no, it wasn't my time.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think the wisdom there is that stuff that you were led through, even though you got dead last, which is mind blowing, but it moved you. It pointed the way to where you're at now. You couldn't be right here, and that's the part. That's the faith part that people sometimes don't get. How did you negotiate that? Because not everybody grows up and gets this right away. They just don't. They just really, and I understand why. I honestly, I really understand why people don't. But some people get it sooner than others. And what did you have something like when you grew up, or something about your history that helped you understand? Look, I'm gonna have to have patience. Everybody understands the value of work. But some people really understand the value of work. Like guys like you, guys like Branch Warren, guys like Jay Cutler, they really understand the value of hard work. Like they just get in there and start. Guy Cisternino's, he's a great example in my mind of somebody who understands this too. How about you?
I mean, for me, I learned, number one, it takes patience. For anything, when I was working my way up from white belt to black belt in karate. I mean, of course, like when I first, like, just 6 to 7 years old and first joined the class, and I would see all like the brown belts and black belts, and I would say, oh man, can I have a black belt now? I want a black belt now. I want to be a black belt right now. Just devoting so much time into that, and the years it took for me to actually work my way to black belt, that right there showed me that it takes patience, for anything that's worth anything. And as far as in the bodybuilding, when I ended up turning pro in 2016 the way I did, that showed me. I'm a believer in God, so I feel like that kind of showed me that this was God's plan for me, because, like I said, after 2013, I didn't want to compete no more. I was done. I was done, Tad.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't want no more to do with it. And it's not like in 2016 I just woke up and said, you know what, I want to start competing again. I just happened by circumstance. I just happened to end up meeting up with my now coach Justin Miller. We just started talking, and then the classic physique division, came up, and then we just ended up started talking about doing a show together, and then boom, won the Easterns, and then turned pro at nationals. So it's like, so that right there shows me that this was God's plan for me. God had, he didn't want me to turn pro in 2013 as a bodybuilder. He wanted me to be a classic physique guy.
There you go. Well, I think that is the truth. I think the truth is that there's I'll put it in your language, that God or the higher power, we don't always understand how things are supposed to unfold for us. That's the faith part, right? The faith part is, hey, have faith in the goodness that is your destiny. We all have it.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you don't, when you fight it, you get in your own way, and you try to push for stuff that's not really there for you, and you just make yourself miserable, and then you end up being jaded and upset about something much more beautiful is probably around the corner for you if you just relax and let it come to you the way it's supposed to, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly. And for everybody who does believe in a higher power, or and believes in God and everything, me saying that this was God's plan for me, and God has a plan for all of us, like that's not saying that God is gonna do everything for us. What that basically means is that you have to look for the signs. He shows us the signs. He pretty much puts you on the path. You have to walk it. God is not gonna. I have to go to the gym and lift the weight. He made that opportunity, that opportunity. He presented that opportunity to me, and then I had to put it. I myself have to put in the work to make that opportunity grow and develop. Right. So that goes for all of us. We all have to still put in the work. Don't expect God to do things for us. Just look for the signs, and when you see the sign, move. Move.
Move. Start moving. Exactly. I agree 100%. I think a lot of times people think, especially when they start talking about the gifts of God or what they're destined for, and they think, oh yeah, well, God's just going to give this to me. Okay, yeah, but maybe sometimes the gift is that we have to evolve, we have to change, we have to become, we have to learn how to be the champion that we want to be, right?
Yes.
I wasn't born knowing how to do all the stuff that I do today. It took me 48 years to evolve to the point where I'm at today, and then hope in the next 10 years, 20 years, I'll evolve even more, but it'll be based on how I moved in my life and what I focus on and these kinds of things. And
Absolutely.
I think you're right. I like the way that you put that, because I think a lot of people do kind of think like that. Oh, it's just going to be dumped in my lap, kind of a thing.
Right.
And I'm all for. Look, I'm not here to say that this life should be any harder than it is. Okay, but I do think that we have this rare opportunity to be able to really create wonderful things for our lives if we have faith and we get out of our own way. And when I say faith, I mean things like that I think one of the greatest gift that we're given. And I used to say this all the time. I went to seminary, and what I used to say was the greatest gift we were given by God was the ability to create the life that we want.
Right.
That's. I mean, how much more beautiful can it get? I used to always go back to the phrase, and I never quote scripture, but I'm going to do it once here. I used to say there's a passage that says, everybody knows it. They say, ask and you shall receive.
You shall receive. Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't say asking if you're good enough, you'll get it. It doesn't say it doesn't say asking if God likes you enough, or if it's no, it just says ask. All you got to do is ask, and it's going to be given. And I think we ask for greatness just by coming here, just by being in this life. Now, I have to ask, because how did you grow up? Did you grow up in a sort of a very easy, middle class kind of an environment, or did you grow up in sort of a more harder environment? I grew up really poor, and so it formed so much of my early adulthood in terms of my desires and my goals. I'm just trying. The root of the question is like, what something gets people involved in sports, and something makes people want to achieve. And like, what is it in your upbringing, do you think, that maybe did that?
Well, I mean, to answer the question, I grew up in a, easygoing, middle class, family and everything. great family, loving family, and they raised me the right way. My mother and my father. I mean, as far as my interest in sports and athletics, where that came from. I mean, it was just with me. It was just with me. Like nobody told me. As far as back as I remember, nobody told me about Bruce Lee.
Oh, really?
I just discovered him.
That's cool.
Exactly.
It's cool.
It was just in me. I was always about being active, and I knew that there was something I was always, I don't know, I was kind of this kid who just didn't want to be normal. I wanted to be different.
Exactly. If I can't be like everybody else, I want to be completely fucking different.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be different. And I was. So there was one point where because of also my love of Bruce Lee and his movies, and then I was also a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan too.
Of course.
Back in the day.
Can you do the splits?
Yeah, it's like with the splits. Exactly.
I remember seeing that movie. What was it? No Retreat, No Surrender. Total C movie. It's a total B movie, but he does that splits on the ring. On the ring, yeah. And I was so impressed with that. I was like, oh my god, that was like. So.
Yeah. So and it's funny you mentioned that, because when I first saw Van Damme do one of those splits, it got me so determined to be able to do it myself that I immediately started stretching every day, any free time I had, I started stretching, and then I got to the point where I could do the Van Damme split. I can't do it no more, but I was able to.
You should do that on stage, man. Work on that for the Olympia.
I need to start.
That would be awesome.
I'm actually gonna start trying to get back into doing those Van Damme splits, because I would. And when I finally hit that Van Damme split back in the day, I was so happy. I felt like I could fly. I was so happy. But that's just the kind of kid I was. When I saw something, I was like saw something that I wanted, for myself. I was determined, to get it. I mean, and I fell in love. I also, this is another thing. I also was in love with acting at one point.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So when I was in high school, my major was theater in high school.
That's really cool. My daughter just broke the news to me a couple weeks ago. She's like, I want to start. She wants to do some acting. She wants to start doing some plays. She's only 10.
Okay.
So she started. Okay. I'm like, she's like, maybe we could do it together. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. I would probably suck. I don't know.
Hey man, that's great that she wants to do that. So yeah, encourage her to do that.
Of course, yeah. Did you pursue it? Did you do anything in theater?
Just after high school, no. I changed up to just technology. I don't know. I just, for some reason, I just kind of I wasn't willing to to go the distance with theater. I wasn't willing to make this. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could then say that if maybe you could say realistically that theater wasn't my passion. It was just something I was just interested in doing, because because a lot of times in theater, with acting, you have to starve before you thrive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Literally.
Literally, yeah. And I wasn't willing to do that. So I said, you know what? I'm switching to technology, and I got a bachelor's in computer engineering.
Okay.
So and then from there I started working at the cable company now for 10 years.
Brian, that's what he did. He was an actor. He still is. Right. I don't know if you know that or not, but yeah, I was totally blown away. I'm like, oh, really? Wow. He's like, yeah, it was in Fast and Furious or something. There was several movies where he was a extra character,
an extra, yeah.
And then had some speaking parts in several. He's got his card. He's a card carrying member and all that kind of stuff. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. He's like, yeah, he's got a movie coming out this summer. It's not gonna. I think it's only at selected theaters. It was some kind of.
Right.
But I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I said, has it helped? Has this sport helped you? He said, yeah, absolutely in some ways, but in other ways, he had to make a choice at some point where he was just getting too big. Even as big, so you're just not going to fit into these. He goes, they're
roles.
Yeah, they're going to see you. They're going to typecast you, and they're not going to be able to fit you in these roles because And I suppose like the camera adds a couple more pounds, so you even look even bigger.
Yes. Right.
And so it just doesn't. So but he really still pursues it to a certain degree. But now it's more the bodybuilding stuff takes precedence over it as that was before. But I didn't know. So you share that in comments. So like, hey, you never know. Like, you never know what could happen. You never know. Kai Green's doing his thing with movies and commercials and games, and I say that this. I think that the world is changing in the sense that we're going to be able to fit these bigger guys into some of these more common like roles, that we might see in movies and in commercials or whatever, because this is what people really. I mean, when you really look, I look at Instagram, I look at social media, and this is what people really want to look like. They don't really want to look like what people were looking like in the 70s and the 80s. No, it's just like they want to have a more athletic physique. I go to the gym and I'm still surprised at how many people are in there that are just like normal people that just want to be in better shape. And even though that sounds kind of goofy to say in today's day and age, but it's only because I come from the reference point. I remember when I first started in the 80s, like in the middle 80s, there was like nobody. It wasn't like it is today. Like, you know what I mean? It was really, it really was quite an oddity. Like, people were like, you do bodybuilding? Like, what do you guys like bench press weights on stage? I'm like, no, man, this is about a physique. I was like, nobody cares what I bench on stage. So, but now I don't have to explain anything. People know what it is, and so it's kind of cool. So it's today it's a much different arena to play in, and quite frankly, you could make a living at it, and you could do really well, and you could do
especially now,
which is what surprised me.
You can market yourself the way you want to, like on social media. You don't have to wait for like a magazine to come out, with your article in it. You market yourself right away.
So which surprised me. I was expecting you to say, oh yeah, I just recently dedicated my life full time to this. But you still have a job. You still have like a 9 to 5. You're gonna pull like a Ronnie Coleman. You're gonna win like the Olympia, and you're gonna like still be working. Right?
Yeah. You know something? Because I get asked a lot. How are you able to be a top athlete and still have a regular job, or is it?
Please tell people the great answer to this. I probably know the answer, but just because people tell me excuses all the time.
Yeah, I know. Look, I would give you my answer. My answer is not at all. It is not hard to be a top athlete and still have a full-time job. For me personally, I feel like it actually helps me, because when I'm at my job for those 8 hours, it's like my job is a shield for me from the outside world.
Sure.
So nothing can interfere with me while I'm at work for those 8 hours. I'm just at one place for those 8 hours. I'm getting them in my meals, for the time I'm there every 3 hours of those 8 hours. So like when I'm on my days off from work and I don't have anything to do, just have a free day, there's something always tries to come and interfere with what I need to do as far as like my eating and my training, whether it's like a friend who wants a favor or something. But when I'm at work, I'm shielded. Nobody can touch me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like so that's not my personal feel of it. And also, like, look, I mean, it's 24 hours in a day. I mean, so for 8 hours, I'm just at one place. I still have plenty of time to get my training in, get my my food in. I mean, what else? What am I not able to achieve? By just having to go, work for 8 hours, for 5 days a week or whatever. Like, what am I missing as far as what it takes to be a pro athlete? Nothing.
I think a lot of times people use excuses, and I hate to say it like that because I don't want to sound like everyone's making excuses, but I tell this to people a lot. I say, look, it doesn't matter how good the excuse is, it's still an excuse. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's accurate.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's accurate. It's still an excuse. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you want to live by excuses or do you want to live by intention? I want to live by intention. I want to be purposeful. That means that success, and this is my take on it. You tell me yours. My take is success isn't by accident. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens intentionally.
Yes.
So
intentionally, yes.
I'm curious. Like, usually, most of the guys and gals that I talk to, who at the highest level of this fitness, whether they're winning Miss Olympia or whether they're in some other industry, they have done a lot of internal work, a lot of personal internal work. It sounds like you're asking these great questions every morning of yourself. So it sounds like you're doing this work, but is this something that's important to you to do that kind of work? Check yourself and come and understand your own philosophies so that you can direct yourself in a way that will accomplish the things that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always definitely, looking internally, looking, within myself, primarily, to make myself, a better person. That's what
What does that mean to you? Like when you say a better person, to me, it means something probably a little different, but I don't know if it does or not, but what does that mean to you?
I mean, I always, to make sure that I always, keep myself, grounded, because, it's easy for a lot of people to, especially when they start to get success, they can develop an ego, start to believe, believe their own hype, just all kinds of crazy things can get into their head, and I always look internally, and when I say make myself better, keep myself, try to make myself a better person as much as I can, to stop those from happening. I never want to believe my own hype. I never want to, forget about the people who were with me from the very beginning, because there's also a saying that, when you, the people who you meet on the way up, same people you'll meet on the way down. Right?
Yeah, I heard that.
And I always want to, just keep it in my head that, to always be appreciative and thankful for what you do have, and don't worry about so much about what you don't have. Be thankful for what you do have. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what I always the reason why I look internally usually is to keep myself grounded.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think when I try to do the same thing. It's too easy for us to not be for us. I think to aspire for some things that are wonderful in this life, and if we fall short on our way there. Sometimes it's easy to get sidetracked and go, and to get a little jaded, and forget like how wonderful it really is, like how this is really a great ride, no matter what.
Yes.
It's like it really is a great ride.
Yes.
This life is a great life, right?
Yes, and that's why, and I really want to make sure, no matter how hard the work is, I want to make sure I enjoy every moment of this. Enjoy every moment. I want to be able to look back at, all these moments, sitting here talking with you, interviewing with, doing this podcast with you. I want, all these competitions that I'm doing. I want to look back at it with a smile.
Yeah.
That's
what it's about.
I don't want to look back at anything and, and be like, oh man, I had to do this. I want to enjoy the process.
I think it's so smart of you to think like that, because I remember telling people, because I'm 48, and I got involved in bodybuilding when I was 15. I thought I was going to be Mr. Olympia, of course, and I pursued it hard, and I was able to make a career out of it and do all sorts of wonderful things. But when I remember telling people not so long ago, the last 10 or 15 years, as I've gotten to the age of once you start hitting 40, you start going, okay, most of my years in the sport are probably behind me in terms of competing.
Right.
You kind of acknowledge that, and I know that for me at least, it was that I had to make sure that I understood. I had to make sure that I really appreciated the journey along the way. And I would tell people, look, man, like these younger kids or people who are hitting their peak in their career. It's like I said, it's so wise of me to say that because man, I tell them, take advantage, really, really soak up your moments, because the majority of your life, you will look back at these times. You won't be living in them. You'll be looking back at them and going,
yes.
And you'll say, wow, this was great. This was great. This was great. This was great. And the interesting thing is that the farther removed we get from any situation, the more we see the good stuff of it. You think back on some past relationship you had that you broke up with some girl or whatever, and at the time you would have told you all sorts of negative stuff about her because you broke up with her, but as you get farther down the road, you just remember the good stuff. Oh yeah, she was cool, because the bad stuff tends to sort of disappear. And so I try to remind people hey man, all the struggle and frustration that you might have going on in your life today, it'll all fade away. And
it doesn't last.
It doesn't last, but soak up the good stuff, because you'll be able to use that as juice to keep you moving forward for years and years and years. And besides, when it's done, it's done. Like, you'll have new horizons to to focus on. So it's good. Right. It's really, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because it's so refreshing. Because this, I was just, I read people like Eckhart Tolle and stuff like that, and I'm a big person of mindfulness, which I don't know if you know much about mindfulness practices, but it's essentially the practice of being in your moment, and you're describing it perfectly. Being in your moment, like, I'm enjoying right where I'm at right now. Period. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
It's my only goal. My goal right now. I mean, obviously you have things you're shooting for, like the Olympia, but the goal of the day today is just to enjoy my moments. Like today,
enjoy the moment.
Be right here. Be present.
Yeah. It's so funny because, like, speaking of just, like, being in the moment, like, the first time, like, I kind of realized how, like, just so in the moment I was, and not really realizing, like, the whole scope of the thing, is when I get messages from young kids who either work out or just or trying to do their first show, or whatever. They tell me that I'm their inspiration, I'm their motivation. Like, when I first heard that, like, I was like, I said, wow, like, I couldn't believe it, because it blew me away, because to me, like, I felt like I'm just this guy, I'm just George, and I'm just competing, doing this thing, doing my thing. I'm just in the moment doing my thing, but knowing that what I'm doing is having that kind of effect, especially like on the younger generation, that also lets you know that you have a responsibility, to these kids that are looking up to you, to be a good role model, and conduct yourself in a positive manner, so that because as we all know, the kids are the next coming, they're the future, the next generation. So you want to be a good role model for them.
Well, I ask myself the question: what do I want my world to be? And whatever I want my world to become. Because I know what it is today. Like, what do I want it to become for my daughter, for her children, for their children? Well, that's the person that I try to be. That's the guy that I try to be, because I can't wait for them to do it. I have to do it for me. And I think you're right. Like, it's really bizarre. Like, the first time somebody ever told me that they, like, well, wait till you get to the point where they tell you, where somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey man, I've been following you since I was a kid." And you'd be like, "Shit, am I that old?" but it's one of these things where you're absolutely right, where we have I guess I try to keep everything in perspective when it comes to these kinds of things, but yeah, I want to make sure that I'm doing the things in my life that meet my expectations for the future. I'm not letting the future happen by itself. I really want to I want to become that first. Because I want that to be in here first, and that's the way. And I am a believer that we are uplifters by nature. That we're here to. You can call it what you like. We're here to help each other, to love each other, but we're uplifters. We're here to show each other through our own example, by our own example in our life, in different ways, that we are capable of whatever we want. And it's good. It's good, and we can help one another, and we can. I believe that we're creatures of joy. Period. That for you, it's being classic physique Olympia. And for somebody else, it's being the CEO of whatever, of Apple. Right. But whatever it is, acknowledge it, be it, pursue it. But it's that pursuit. That's why we're here. This joyful pursuit of all these wonderful things, and they're all good.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
So now I had a couple. I usually have a couple of questions when I end everything. I've been trying to come up with some interesting ones that are kind of funny, but kind of give people an idea of who you kind of are. So I'm going to ask two questions I always ask, and then I'm going to ask one that I made just for you, and I do this for everybody. So, so the first one is, in your life to date, when you look at your life, what do you see as has been or will be? You can frame it any way you like. Your biggest challenge.
My biggest challenge, what has been or will be. I'm gonna say what will be My biggest challenge. Well, you say I could either go either way.
Either way, it could have been. You could say, "Hey, this is when I was a kid," or you could say, "Hey, in the future, this is all my. This is my biggest challenge." It's open ended. You could answer that any way you like. Whatever's most relevant.
I'll say this. Back when I was a bit younger, and still heavy into the martial arts, my biggest challenge is when I dislocated my right ankle.
Oh. Ouch.
Yeah, because and it was that was like, it was like my foot was turned completely to the right, and and I say that was my biggest challenge. I mean, the injury itself wasn't my biggest challenge, but my biggest challenge was mentally to keep myself strong to believe that I will recover from this.
How old were you?
And I'll be able to. At that time, what was I? I think I was 21. Yeah, 21 years old. Yeah, I was 21.
Did you do it in practice or something? You were practicing?
I was fooling around doing.
See, that's the way it always happens that way. Nothing important.
I'll tell you exactly what I was doing. Okay, so my girlfriend at the time, I was we was out, out and about. And we were just playing around, messing around. So I picked her up and I started spinning her around. And I ended up tripping. And in the way I fell, completely twisted, twisted my foot to the right. When I fell, I didn't feel any pain when it happened, but I knew something wasn't right. So I looked down at my foot and I saw that my foot wasn't straight. It was
oh shit!
I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, what's
my foot's supposed to go the other way.
I was like, what the hell? So but yeah, then so I went to the hospital immediately. After that, but just keep but at that time I was training in the martial arts, full blast. Like I was that was when I was like really trying to be the best martial artist that I possibly could be. I wanted to be Bruce Lee. I wanted to be as good as Bruce Lee. So and then when that happened, it was hard to stay strong mentally to feel like I could get back to the way I was. I felt like, oh man, this is probably going to affect me.
It's going to hold me back
the rest of my life. Yeah, exactly.
Did it affect your training? Did it ever?
Once I healed, I was back to normal. Like it's like so I don't. It's like it never happened.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. It actually wasn't that bad. But at that time, I never had an injury like that before, so I was like, I didn't know what to expect. So I guess you could say that was kind of my biggest challenge, just keeping mentally. Like I was very down in the dumps for a long time when that happened, especially having to keep that cast on for however long it was, and then crutches. And then I was like,
you're probably thinking, I need to get a girlfriend that doesn't weigh as much. I'm gonna keep getting ankle injuries here.
Yeah, all right. So I would say that was my biggest challenge. So biggest challenge so far. I don't know what my biggest challenge would be going forward. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I tell you what, I don't want to be my biggest challenge. I don't want to be my biggest challenge. When it comes for me to not compete anymore, like because a lot of times guys, I get it's hard for them to let it go. It's hard for them to let go when it's time. When it's time, it's run its course, and it's time to just that's it.
It's okay. You can hang them up.
Yeah, exactly. Like so right now, at this time now, I'm letting myself know. I'm preparing myself. Look,
there's a time.
There's a time for it to end. That nobody can beat the clock. For whatever reason, whether I just get too old or if my body starts to decline. Look, regardless of anything. I've done things that are historic, and I can still look back at things and say, oh, I did this, so there's nothing. There will be nothing, no reason to feel like, oh, I didn't achieve anything, Right.
That's really wise, actually. And it's also very mature and wise, and I think it's really forthright of you to be able to think like that. I wish that I had done that because, it took me. Here's the hard part, and I think you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of guys who have a hard time sometimes hanging them up, and gals too. But people in general have a hard time hanging this up, especially in a sport like this where you can be an athlete for a long time. I competed from 1989 till just like almost 4 years ago. So it was like 3 years ago. So like a lot of years, like 30 years almost. And that's a long time to compete.
Right.
And but the truth is that, yeah, there's a time for it, and there's a time when you're really at your peak. I know this. Like physically, there's a time when you're really at your peak, and there's a time where that shit starts to trail off. It's like,
right,
it's just the natural decline of the physique. It doesn't mean that unless you're Dexter Jackson, but but not everybody has. It's all different for each person. But we absolutely have to acknowledge that, and I think it's smart to tell yourself that ahead of time. Because when I retired, I remember when I started judging pro shows, and then soon after that I committed to gym that I was going to retire. I wasn't going to compete anymore because it would have been a conflict of interest. And but I remember it took me at least it was easily at 6 to 9 months where I really had to refocus myself in the gym, my goals for my diet and my gym work, and because I'd always been so structured. But more importantly, I had thought I was only thinking of myself in terms of being an athlete, not just and so that was the hard part. That was the hard part to turn that off. Everything that we do in this sport is to the extreme. Eating, sleeping, training, all the supplements, everything's to the extreme. Even the drugs, everything's extreme. And so you can't keep doing the extreme shit your whole life. Like there's limitation to this, right?
Right, definitely, for sure.
So that's the hard part, to turn that off, because it was like I had to redefine who I thought I was. I wasn't Tad the bodybuilder, athlete, competitor anymore. That was a part of who I was and a part of who I am, but it had to take a back seat. I couldn't. So that's smart, because I think if I had that kind of perspective and said, hey, Tad, there's a time for this, and then I think I would have enjoyed it more. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot, but I think I would have enjoyed it even more, you know?
Right. No, I feel you. Yeah, but of course. Yeah. But that's what and also like the limelight stuff. You have to be able to let that go. You have to understand that there's going to be a generation out there that's probably not going to know who you are, and and you just have to be fine with that.
That's tough for some people, man. Especially if you define yourself by your popularity or by your the accomplishments that you have in your life in the sport. That's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. But okay, so here's my next question. What's your to date, or when you think of your life, like what do you think what is your biggest blessing?
My biggest blessing is my family. My family. With through them, like I feel like I could do anything, through them. They're like they're my strength.
Who's in your family?
Right now, it's a very small family. It's my mother, my sister, and my 2 nephews and my niece. So we're all here local in New York. And the fact that we're so small, it keeps us very tight, because we know it's just a few of us here. So
did you say we have to stay tight? You have siblings? You have siblings?
I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, I have 2 sisters.
Are they older?
So
one
of my sisters is here. Huh?
Are they older or younger? Or I'm just kind of trying to picture.
They're both older. I'm the baby.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And my it's a 11-year difference between me and my middle sister.
Oh wow, 11 years. Okay.
Yeah, 11 years. Yeah.
She was already grown up when you were.
Yeah. She'll be like, when she was in high school, she would have to pick me up from day camp or wherever I was. But because of the age difference, I also see her almost like a second mother type of figure.
Sure.
She kind of had a helping hand in raising me too.
Your other sister's how many years older?
I think that's about a 15-year difference there.
Oh wow, so 11 and 15, so it's quite a bit of difference. Okay, so she was probably out of the house. But
yeah. But that's the oldest sister. She lives in Florida. She's been living there for years.
See, I knew Florida. I knew Florida would come up in the conversation. It always does, man. Whenever I talk to people from New York, it's like
Florida. It's like New York and Florida. That's like the transition. So
you get tired of this goofy weather, and then you just go to Florida.
Right. And of course, and Florida is because how she got to Florida was because my father he ended up moving to Florida. He passed away in 2004. But he moved to Florida. Yeah. And so he was living there when, when he, before he passed. And my father's another thing, like, because of the, like the values, that I learned, from my father and everything like that, it helped me become the man that I am today. I know he would have loved to be able to see all these great things happening, but I know he's still looking down. And,
he may be part of the reason why. I think he is part of the reason why some of these great things are happening. We're a product of our parents in many ways, on many different levels.
Absolutely.
And who knows, man? Maybe he's throwing you some good some good heavenly pearly dust there from.
I totally believe he is. And something, another thing, and this might be like really really deep and everything like that. But one of the things that I'm most proud about, as far as like achieving the things I've achieved in bodybuilding, and people knowing like who I am, George Peterson. I'm George Peterson III. My father, he's George Peterson Jr. So people are not only knowing me, they're knowing his name. So I feel like I'm doing something good with the name,
Absolutely. People talk about in sports. People talk about legacy a lot because it's important for us to want to be remembered beyond our life and beyond the things that we do. And I believe this is my personal belief that the real legacy that we leave behind is the love and the joy that we spread forward. That the things that people remember us for. If you want sometimes people's legacy aren't good things. They're things like mean. There's their anger and frustration and hatred. But the legacy that I think I want to leave behind is one of joy and one of love and one of acceptance and one of understanding and those are the kinds. So I think you're doing that already because you come. I didn't know you before. I didn't really get a chance to know you before our conversation today, and I really am impressed. You are a really, really, really warm and open and sincere person, and Thank you. Yeah, it comes across. So I had to ask a question about your parents and your family because I sensed that like I'm a kind of an energy person, and you got really wonderful, clean, good energy, and I know from my own life. I grew up with a mother, and she was a wonderfully loving mother. Grew up really poor, but very loving. I wanted for nothing in terms of love and attention. And when I meet people who are good-hearted, you can always tell. Like you can tell people who are just in it for themselves, and then you can tell people who there's something bigger, and that's you. I didn't expect that, and so I'm pleasantly surprised. Not that I expected bad things, just that I just didn't. I know. So now for the fun question. And this one just came. And this is a little tainted, but because you hear people saying like, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be? If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? I had to ask this because of do you see yourself as the bull, or do you see yourself as some other kind of animal?
You already know. I'm gonna be a raging bull for real. Okay.
There you go.
That's too easy. Yeah. But I tell you what. That's all right. If I wasn't gonna be a bull, what type of animal would I be? Hey. Yeah, I mean this might be probably a typical male answer, but I'll be a lion.
Of course,
I'll be a lion.
The king of the jungle, man. You gotta.
Exactly. With the beautiful mane and everything. Love it. Yeah.
Actually, I really like cats and especially lions and stuff. I was watching this. I don't know why I do this, but every once in a while I'll cruise my Twitter feed and I saw this video. This I guess you can go to these reserves where you can pet these lions and stuff. And I'm like, because I went to Thailand last year and I took a picture with the monkey. It's fucking cool, man. I love this little monkey. He was awesome, by the way. He was so nice. And then there was a lion, and they wanted, and he was chained up, and he looked drugged up. I'm like, no. I'm not taking a picture with this thing. I'm like, he doesn't look like he wants to take a picture with anybody. You should let that thing go. But I see people do this, and they get like attacked. They get like. I'm like, what do you like? I don't never. It's still a lion. This thing is still like he don't know.
It's still a wild animal. I mean, it's so unpredictable. I don't know.
No, it's totally. But I appreciate the metaphor because the lion is the top of the food chain in its environment, so nobody really challenges it. So I totally get that. But it was just. Well, George, hey man, like I truly appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to be on the show, and I'm so wonderfully surprised, maybe not surprised, but thrilled that I got a chance to really get a chance to meet you and talk to you and know more about you, because you're an absolutely delightful, wonderful dude, and I appreciate you so much, man. And you made a wonderful, you're a wonderful Arnold Classic champion, and I expect wonderful things from you this year at the Olympia. You're gonna have your hands full because, you know, with Breon and everybody else going, and I'm sure that Steve's going to come there too, and everyone's going to be looking good. So you're going to have your hands full.
Hey man, I'm always down for a challenge, so I'm looking forward to it. You know, there's a saying that the tougher the battle, the sweeter the victory. So I'm looking forward to a tough battle, so we can get that sweet victory.
That's right.
But I want to say, I want to thank you for having me up here. I want to let you know that I've known about you for a long time, because, you know, even back when I was competing back in 2012, 2013, I would see like those RX Muscle wrap-up videos when you would be doing with Dave and everything. So I knew of you, but I never had a conversation with you. I never met you, and it's been a pleasure meeting you and talking with you too. Oh
man, well, it's going to be a friendship that we have for a long time. I know it because you're a good dude, and like attracts like in this universe. I know it, and good people. So,
that's right.
But I'll tell you, on your shirts, if you make some shirts, you should. I've always loved this phrase, and it's fucking perfect for you. If you mess with the bull, you get the horns. You gotta put that on there, man.
That's classic. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna put that on one of the designs.
All right, George. Hey, man. Thank you so much for being on the show today, man. You have a wonderful rest of the day, my friend. Stay on the line real quick before we hang up.
Okay.
But I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Handle your high with Tadayoshi.